podcast where we explore the intersection of gaming, art, culture, one bit at a time. I'm Will. I am your host, and today's conversation is something I've been super looking forward to. We are talking about wargaming, competition, masculinity, and how hobbies, they might not seem important to some people, but are super important in growing your personality and your sense of self, especially for young people. This conversation is with Christian, or Chimera, at ChimeraPaintsMinis. Christian is a passionate wargamer and painter from New York City, a place where daily life seems to be competition, and identity seems inseparable from finding your own niche within the city. Christian is a black cishet man who lives there and got into the hobby in the city and finding friends there in 2021, and in 2023 he decided to turn his hobbying into content creation. He launched his streaming channel first on YouTube and then moved to Twitch last year in 2024. So we're going to dive into his experience as a cis man who rejects the traditional competitive masculinity in the world of wargaming, where dominance and winning at all costs, whether that be in the actual game or in painting competitions, are often held up as the gold standard. But the twist here is that Christian goes beyond competition because he is competing against long-standing harmful ideas of masculinity that say what a man must do to conquer, control, dominate. He is instead deciding to be creative. He has a background in theater and is one of the most thoughtful and, again, creative people I know. He has such amazing style. He is, as you'll see, amazing at just speaking and taking anything I throw at him throughout this podcast. And he has created a cozy space for anyone, regardless of gender, to thrive online. So, let's start with, again, the core of what Christian and most of my guests are against: competition. Most people think it's a straightforward zero-sum game. Someone wins, someone loses. But in reality, competition can actually say a lot about who gets to win and why. A recent study in 2024 by Leonard shifts the conversation by focusing on the gender gap in competitiveness to something deeper. They ask, what if the problem isn't that women and non-binary people don't compete enough, but that confidence, that belief you can win, is systematically withheld from those groups? They argue that gender as we understand it is rooted in confidence disparities. Men are socialized to compete. Women are socialized to be passive or cooperate. And this has a deep effect on how people see their own worth in competitive spaces. This is something we also talk about in political science, that in the research, women don't win political elections less than men, but they simply just don't run for office as much. But in wargaming, this gets amplified because it's on a smaller level and we can see it in front of us. It's not about strategy or skill, it's about how confident you feel in the system. And Christian is someone who's gotten around that roadblock and challenges that framework and is a real example of how you can find community, and talks about his little niche in New York and his gaming group that comes from all different kinds of boroughs, all different kinds of ages and backgrounds. And I think it's something really inspirational to hear as someone trying to form my own local community. So, the entire foundation of wargaming, at least the traditional male dominated version of it, is tied to masculine ideals of aggression, dominance, and winning by any means possible. Here's where Christian stands out. He is rejecting that toxic masculinity, as we call it, not in his own practice, but also in the way he teaches and mentors others and actively brings people in and is talking about mentoring people of all ages and helping teach them. He is creating a space where art, yes, wargaming as art, can be about expression, the joy of creation, and not just beating others down. It's about community and connection. This is where a piece by Stephanie Maven, 2020, enters the conversation. Maven critiques the way that we often frame competition through an essentialist lens, meaning we assume that men are naturally better at competition than women or non binary people, and that women and non binary people have to be exceptional to compete. They push back on this notion, arguing that competition is not inherently linked to gender, but to social conditioning. Maven's research also uncovers something even more critical, that when competition is framed as the only way to succeed, we are denying the value of cooperation, collaboration, and play. In Christian's world of wargaming, this is exactly what he's trying to shift, that competition isn't about skill and knowledge, it's about mindset. So we can challenge every dude bro at the table that tries to rules lawyer you, and you can also challenge the judges at Golden Demon that might do a critique of your style that you don't want to change. So our version of competition that we talk about, it's about having fun, building relationships, and celebrating each other's victory, not just your own. We're all competing to have the most fun and hoping other people win. No, it's not competition. Why did I say it's competition? What makes Christian's approach so important isn't that he's rejecting these traditional ideals, it's that he's doing it so publicly. In a space that's been long considered a boys' club, he's been creating this inclusive space and building bridges for other men to be able to interact with more gender diverse people and not feel alienated or out of place with communities that they might not know as well. So that in itself, I think, is a really great and revolutionary act that's rarely acknowledged. So, before we dive into our conversation with Christian, I want to keep in mind what is the importance of rethinking competition, especially for men. What does it mean to compete if worth isn't measured in dominance or aggression? And how does that change the way you engage with others and the way you engage with yourself? That's the conversation we're here to have. All right, without further ado, here is Christian at ChimeraPaintsMinis. So, Christian, what do you do online?
Alrighty. Well, primarily I am a Twitch streamer. I stream on twitch.tv/ChimeraPaintsMinis, all one word. I stream myself twice a week at night, painting miniatures primarily. Also do a little gaming here and there, but the miniatures hobby is my bread and butter. I've been doing that for almost 4 years now. And yeah, it's always a super chill time. We come in, and I like to think of mine as a cozy stream, even though it doesn't strictly like follow the conventions of like what you might imagine a cozy stream looks and sounds like. But people tell me it's a comfortable time on stream, so I'm like, oh, good. I'm glad I can provide that for people. Especially nowadays, right? But yeah, that's a little bit about me and what I
Yeah,
do.
I think it's especially cozy when you go emo mode. But I may be biased. I'm a stream viewer of chimeras,
Oh,
and
I think you were breaking up before. Did you bring up the the word I heard was emo, and I was like, uh-oh, I know what this is about. Oh,
I
the emo
really,
wig gag.
I hope my mic's okay. I'll have to stay very close to it. I
Yeah,
said
I think Mike is fine. Yeah, I think it's probably just like connection or
connection,
something.
yeah. I said it's very cozy when you go emo mode.
Hmm. Oh yeah, when people use that redeem and I have to put on the wig. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, do you also do like wargaming pretty often or occasionally, like in real life offline?
Yes, I do. So here where I live in New York City, I've been part of a gaming group for the last oh goodness, it's been like 3 years at this point. I joined it when I first graduated from college. I was looking for like a community to kind of like be a part of and like go and like spend time with on a regular basis because when you graduate college, as I know you will be doing soon, right?
Yeah.
One of the first things you notice, right, is how all the structure that held your life together up until that point just falls away. And so, like, priority number one, at least for me, was like finding ways to rebuild that for myself. Main thing, of course, is like getting a job, but also too, just like outside of that, right? The way it happened was actually so funny. So I was at it was November or October of 2022, and the armies on parade for that year was going on at the local Warhammer store, which is down on 8th Street, so
Ooh,
right near the heart of NYU's quote unquote campus. That's where I went to school, and I brought my Sisters of Battle army, literally just the army. I This was like early on
huh?
in my hobbying life, so like I didn't know people like build whole ass dioramas for armies on parade. So there were literally just two of us who entered. It was me and this other guy, Chris, who goes by Painting Pirate on Twitch, and it was so funny because as we were like sitting there like just chatting, obviously he was going to win because he had a whole diorama and everything. He had some really nice Ideneth Deepkin from Age of Sigmar
Love it.
that he had painted up. And these two people walk into the store. My fellow, who would eventually become my fellow club mates, Charles and Jess, and like the four of us were just chatting, and they mentioned their group. They mentioned that they had a Discord, and they invited us to join. Now at the time, Chris was preparing to move out to he now lives out in Los Angeles. But I ended up joining the Discord that day, and that was how I found my way to the gaming group. We do a variety of different meetups at various gaming stores around the city. We meet up every week on Tuesday and Thursday nights. We run a weekly event where we play just like whatever games people want to play. Usually, because everyone's a busy adult, most people like to play lightweight games like Kill Team or Warcry. Because you can be done in an hour and it doesn't take like a million years. But a bunch of us do still play like the heftier, 40 full size 40K games or full size Age of Sigmar games as well. Um, and yeah, so that was the beginning of that. And what's so funny is that that guy Chris, Painting Pirate, the literally a year, almost a full year to the day I met him is when I would meet like Panda and Jamie and the others,
Yes.
and they all know him, and it's like crazy how like before I that was way before I ever even decided to become a streamer. He was actually the one who was like, "Hey, you should give streaming a shot. Like it's pretty fun." I was like, "I'll think about it."
Yeah.
And then months later I did. So like the full circle moment, that's the power of community right there.
Yeah, I just feel like you are such a natural born streamer and communicator. Like, it's so chill and comfy being in your stream and talking to you too. And I've been so thankful for this hobby um, as well. And
Hmm.
that's a super cool way to get into it, actually being out there with people. Um,
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And also thanks for your kind words, Lil. I appreciate
yeah.
that.
So I also wanted to ask you, like, um, in your local store environment? Do you usually feel pretty comfortable there? Have you ever been to places that like you may have felt like shut out of the community, or is 40K just super accepting?
That is a great question. So, um, I think a big part of the reason why I feel so motivated, excuse me, to be involved in the community is that I live in New York City, right?
Yeah.
So obviously, like very progressive place. And the our founders of our group, right? These four really awesome dudes. They themselves came together to start this group back in like late 2021, early 2022, because they themselves had like I don't necessarily say struggled, but like they found that that kind of several things were lacking in the sort of like broader wargaming kind of community that was has existed in New York City
Hmm.
for a fair bit of time, right? And one of those things, well, there are a few things. First was like the regularity of meetups, right? Um, and the other thing too was just kind of like a sort of beginner friendly space, right? I'm sure you're well aware, right? Based on your time and experience in the hobby, that
Yeah.
like most people who are involved in our hobby is a very old one, and that like the average age of someone who's
Oh,
involved in this
yeah.
hobby is very high, right? And coupled with that comes like um, like certain preclusions, certain mindsets, them all being products of their time, etc. Right? Um, fine people for the most part, but still, not necessarily being like uh, not necessarily going out of their way to be actively inclusive of various other types of people. And so the founders of our group decided that they wanted to change that, right? They wanted to have a much more casual environment where people could like come in and be a part of, this hobby, and learn how to play the games, even to and also just feel like they're welcome. I'd say, thanks to them, I've felt personally very welcome in the space, and I think being a part of the community here in New York City, exactly, goes a long way in helping me to feel a
Yeah.
lot more comfortable. 'Cause I'm from Virginia originally. I don't know if I ever told you.
I didn't know that.
Um, you did know that, or you didn't know
I
that?
didn't. I did not.
Oh, okay. Then yeah, so I'm from Virginia originally, right? And I mean, Virginia, it's harder to get involved in the Warhammer community down there for a variety of reasons. First of all, you got to drive everywhere, and so
Yeah.
every hobby store is kind of far from me. And like when you're in those more suburban areas, speaking of, right, at least anecdotally, what I've observed is that the communities at those stores are much more tight knit and a bit more closed off, right? Because these are
Yes.
people who, again, average age kicking in right here, like this is like, people in their mostly in like their 40s and 50s who they've been meeting up at the like the One Games Workshop store in, like, say, Springfield, Virginia, for example. They might have been meeting up there for like 20 years. Like, how's someone like me, who has only lived for, at this point, 24, almost 25 years in a month, how am I supposed to become a part of that, right? I mean, they're like double my age, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
um
I
so
feel
like
that.
before, yeah, so it's like before we even get to like any of like the other like intersectionalities with, like, with my identity, right? There's that generational divide to consider there for sure. But our gaming group, still, like, everyone's, I'd say, like, average age of like my gaming group, instead of being like somewhere in the 40s, mid 40s, we're probably all like on average like in our early 30s, I'd say. I'm definitely one of the younger members of the group.
Yeah.
There's me. There's Adristea, who you also know from Twitch. We're
I didn't
friends in
know
real life
y'all were
since we live near each other.
IRLs.
Yeah, that's
That's
how we met
awesome.
IRL first. Yeah. And we're both part of the same group now. But there's the two of us, and then there's my friend Nicholas's kid Arlo, who's he's like 10 or 11 at this point. So like there's a big, so like, yeah, he is certainly the youngest person who's like ever like involved in game nights. But see, that's the really nice thing though too, is that like it is a family friendly space, you know what I mean, like that. My friend Nicholas's kid, he knows all of us by name. And like, we chat, and it's like it's kind of fun to see, like, uh the old and the young kind of interacting, right? So I think one thing that I think that just goes to show that you know that generational divide that I mentioned previously. I think we've done a lot of work to really like start to break
Oh
that
yeah.
down, and make the hobby space overall just feel more unified here in the city. Or I guess I should say I should specify Manhattan because we come from all five boroughs, but we meet primarily in Manhattan because it's central to all of us. There are groups in Brooklyn, for example, that are separate from us. We're certainly not the only group
Oh
doing this
yeah.
sort of thing in the city.
I can imagine
We're
there's no end of like 40K stuff you could do there, or any war game
yeah.
really.
Yeah, and we also have the New York Open here in the city as well, which is still unlike the Nova Open, which has evolved into being more of a convention. The New
Mhm.
York Open is still purely just a tournament, right? So it's like kind of in that earlier phase. I mean, I don't know if they want to expand into being a full convention. Maybe they
Yeah.
do one day, but like they're still in like that sort of earlier development phase that Nova used to be in, right? There's like I think last year they had two painting classes at New York Open which you could just pay for separately. You didn't have to register for the tournament or anything like that. And I think they're gonna have this like the same number this year. I gotta go back and double check. I met the lead organizer at Adepticon when we were all there back a month ago. Um, we were on the same flight back from Milwaukee, and we were chatting about that. And he was talking about like, yeah, I want to definitely get some more painting classes, and so we were talking about Golden Demon. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, there is like a lot of there's a lot to do generally here in the city with the various different groups doing things, and yeah, I'd say overall this is a very active wargaming community that exists here in New York City. Absolutely, especially when it comes to Games Workshop stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because I've talked to a few people for this podcast project already. And I'd say you and my girlfriend Hannah, who she doesn't make content online, but I'd say you two are like my biggest actual wargaming people. Everyone else I've talked to is a little more on the painting and art side of it, which you
Yeah,
totally
yeah.
are. Totally
Oh yeah,
online, yeah,
that's me
forward
for
facing.
sure. Yeah, I'd say like I probably spent. I mean, just because of the amount of effort I put into my painting, I definitely spend more time painting than I do playing because playing is also
Yeah.
like it's a logistical thing, like even here in a place like New York City with all of our public transit and everything
Mm-hmm.
like that, transporting minis, 30 minutes to the game store, for example, via the subway.
Oh,
Um,
I didn't even think
most of
about that.
yeah, most of the time it's fine, but other times I'm like, I'd rather choose death.
Yeah.
It's like this is terrible, especially during rush hour. But yeah, it's like that. That's the sort of thing where it's like,
Mm-hmm.
playing like a full size 40K game, for example. You got to carry your army with you, which means you got to invest in a good case that's going to protect your minis, and it's this whole, like I said, logistical dance you got to do. So that kind of keeps me from going to play. I mean, that and plus the fact that I work and I'm in grad school too, kind of keeps me from going to play as much as I'd like, even though I have not one but two full armies just like ready to go whenever I want.
Yeah.
Um, but other than that, though, I do consider myself both still a war gamer and a mini painter too. With a
Oh yeah.
natural lean toward mini painting because most people spend most of their time mini painting anyway to get their armies ready for tournaments and
Mm-hmm.
stuff. So there you go.
I remember a friend of mine who is kind of interested in Warhammer, but mainly plays Magic the Gathering, was like, you measure
Mm,
with a tape measure and like, can you fudge that? And all these like asking how cheating works, and I'm like, hey, after you spend like 60 hours painting your centerpiece model, like people aren't cheating. There's a
yeah.
connection. And
Oh
people
my
are
goodness,
cheating,
yes.
but it's so much. It's disincentivized so much.
No, for real. Like there's because especially because you can spend 3 to 4 hours playing a
Mm-hmm.
game of 40K, which means like you're gonna be standing across from like the same person who could be a complete stranger, right?
Mm-hmm.
For that amount of time. And just like you said too, like when you plop your models down on the table, there's this sort of feeling of mutual respect because it's like, oh yeah, like I see the effort you put into painting those, like, and because I know what that's like, it's like, oh yeah, like I see you, I respect that. And yeah, I mean, my counter argument to what your friend would say,
Mm-hmm.
there's like, yeah, measurements, they don't have to be. I mean, they gotta be. They can't be wild, but like they're not razor sharp precise all the time either. A
Oh
lot of
yeah.
the experience of wargaming is friendly agreements, and sticking to them. Being like, hey man, look, like, and also being very transparent about like your intent with any
Yeah.
given move, right? I'm sure you know this from the times you've played or seen people play online. It's like, yeah, it's a great exercise in like communication and mutual respect. That's why I'm like, it makes me happy to see like young people like my friend's kid who shows up to our group meetups, right?
Yeah.
It's what makes me happy to see him involved in it because I see him picking up the social skills and like that's really good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we have a similar dad and his kid at our shop, and the kid started playing BattleTech and then was interested in the big games like Warhammer.
Mm,
And he's actually, I think he's 13, is going to be joining my girlfriend's running a crusade at our store. So he's going to be
nice,
learning,
nice.
being thrown in the deep end. Um, but yeah, I think also part of what helps with the generational divide is that there's new editions of Warhammer that come out every few years. So we're all kind of
Oh yeah.
learning together. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that helps
Mm-hmm.
part of it, um, at least on the rules end.
Yeah, I totally hear you. Like, everyone's got like start from zero at some point, so it's like, yeah, it's like kind of puts everyone in the same boat
Yeah,
for at
it's
least a period
funny
of time.
because
It
we'll
is pretty funny.
have older guys who are like coming to my girlfriend and I who are like 22, like, hey, we haven't played for so many editions. Can you help us get back into it? Um,
Yeah, yeah,
we've
we see
like
that a lot too.
Yeah, we've taken on the teacher roles at our local shop because it's a pretty new shop. It's only been there for like less than 2 years. Um,
Okay, okay.
so I live in a very rural area in southern PA. So every store is like 30 minutes away up into PA or down into Maryland.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, but I kind of wanted to shift gears back into a gender studies topic that I thought of while
Okay,
you were
yeah.
talking about your art. Um, were you into art or painting before mini painting? And how do you think that games like Warhammer helps men and masculine people get more into art?
Huh, that's a great question. So yeah, I mean, I was a theater major in college, so yep, for sure. I was
Awesome.
into the art. Yeah, 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 for sure. I am an artist at heart. So the artistry, the creativity that comes bundled with mini painting comes rather naturally to me. I think as far as mini painting's relationship with like how it interacts with masculinity is concerned. Ooh, that's a good
Yeah.
question. Let me think about that one for a split second. I promise I'll have an answer
Yeah.
here shortly,
No,
because
you're
I do
good.
think
I
about this
can
quite a bit.
kind of tell you what I've talked about with Bennett in our previous episode.
Yeah,
Holy
sure.
Fire them. We were talking about how usually um there'll be like more chill spaces that are created in the art space from women and non-binary people, but the majority of men seem to have channels that are more like competitive painting and tactical
Mm-hmm.
skills.
Oh
But
yes. Oh yes.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
usually we
Okay,
see
so I
more
have.
competitiveness in the more male part of the hobby. If you could speak to that, I guess.
Yes, oh my goodness,
Subverting that
absolutely
as
I
you
can.
do.
Yes, subverting that.
Yeah.
I've been literally thinking all about this because I'm getting ready for Nova right now, right?
Yes.
And
I'm
I'm
going
thinking
to.
about, oh my God, I'm so excited to be able to hang
Yeah.
out with you there. That's gonna be so fun.
It's gonna be so fun.
Let's talk more about
Yes.
that after this for
Yes.
sure. But yeah, so the I've been thinking about this a lot because, like I said before, or like I alluded to before, I was at Adepticon 2025 this past month, right? And the I went to the Golden Demon Award ceremony, watched the minis in the case all weekend, oohed and awed at them, and I think it goes without saying that especially when like you remove our content creator community from the equation, yeah, Golden Demon and many higher level painting contests like it are total sausage fests, right?
Mhm.
And the reason why I brought up Nova and why I'm getting ready for that is because not only am I going to enter Capital Palette, and this is low key me holding myself accountable for entering Capital Palette, because up until literally right this second, I'm not entirely sure, but now that I've said it on the record, oops, guess I'm
Hey,
doing it
hey,
now.
we can do it together.
Yes, we
I want
can.
to
Yes, we
too.
can.
I want to try.
And the format of Capital Palette at Nova is a very is a it's an open format, unlike the competition for Golden Demon at Adepticon, right?
Yeah,
And I'll talk a bit more about why I think that's important in a little bit.
yeah.
But
And we
also at
explained
Nova.
what Golden Demon
Oh, sorry.
was
Go
in
ahead.
my. I was just saying, for the listeners at home, we explained Golden Demon in my last episode with Bard of the Mad Realm. So
Damn, you got a
continue.
kill. You had a yeah.
Continue.
You got a killer lineup on this podcast. You
I
got Bard and you
know.
got Bennett. That's good
I
shit
am
right there.
continuing this past the assignment. Trust.
Hell yes, you should. Absolutely, you should. But
Sorry,
anyway, so
keep
going
going.
back to oh no, you're good. You're good. You're good. This is just a conversation. Hey, come on now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so at Nova, I'm very happy because I got into uh, a class with that's going to be taught by Kaha. I don't know if
Mm.
you're familiar. You're probably familiar with Kaha's name
I
from hearing it from either
am.
Jamie or Bonko. Yeah, so I got into one of her classes, and Kaha was the only woman to medal at Golden Demon this past
Yeah.
unless I missed someone, because I low key was like I was on my phone for a little bit of the ceremony, so I didn't look up constantly. But I to my recollection, my understanding is Kaha was the only woman to medal at Golden Demon um this past year at Adepticon. And her painting style, when you look at it, right, it is very much not what you would typically expect to win Golden Demon. And I think that's for the better because I think
Mm-hmm.
going back to your point, right, when it comes to the way masculinity kind of interacts with miniature painting, right? There's this sense of competitiveness, like you said, and with competitiveness comes also this idea of correctness,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like this correctness and this like oh goodness, in a lot of ways there's this like this cycle of trends that mimics the tech world. I think in a lot of ways. For example,
Oh
like
yeah.
Golden Demon, you see it, you see a we can curse on this
Yeah.
podcast,
Oh,
right? I
my
think I already have
professor
at this point.
is so chill. I love
Okay,
her.
cool.
So
Cool,
yeah.
cool, cool. You see like, for example, it's like one year at Golden Demon, you see a shit ton of non-metallic metal, work
Oh
put into a
yeah.
miniature,
Can you
and now all
explain
of a
what that
sudden
is real
everyone.
quick?
Yes, absolutely. So non-metallic metal is a method of painting using standard acrylics to mimic the look of like shiny or maybe not so shiny metal on a miniature without using metallic paints.
Yeah.
So it's effectively an optical illusion that emulates like the shimmer and shine of
Ooh,
metal material
that's a good way to put it.
on the mini. Yeah, yeah, without using
Illusion.
like the actual shiny. Yeah, it's an illusion. It is an illusion because the thing about it is, and this is so, I think this is something that's another fascinating angle to this, is that non-metallic metal, while it looks cool, um, you ask most people, right, out who are not competitive painters, at least not hyper competitive painters, and they'll go like, yeah, non-metallic metal is cool, but it is certainly not uh, a prerequisite to having uh, a well-painted mini. The opposite of non-metallic metal is what's known as true metallic metal, which is using metallic paints to create metallic effects on your miniature, but doing it in such a way where like you're layering them. You're doing more than just slapping on a single coat of a metallic paint. You're kind of you're doing more to like build it up and to make it, I guess, seem more lifelike, right? Um, it's not like I wouldn't say they're necessarily like two different like churches, so to speak.
Yeah.
More like different denominations of the same church, if I had to like give it a metaphor or give it a liken it to something,
I
right?
like that.
So yeah. So what I mean by that is but then so like so people generally agree like, oh yeah, there are many ways to paint a well painted mini, but then you move into a competition context and suddenly there is the standard, excuse me, with the capital S, that every painter must paint to. The thing to understand about Golden Demon, especially as a competition, is that it is also a marketing ploy by Games Workshop to promote their miniatures, right? Which means like
Yeah.
they're going to be taking photos. Those photos are going to end up on the Warhammer community website, right? And when you look at the studio paint jobs done by Games Workshop employees, when you like go to buy a model on the website, there's non-metallic metal. There are all these other different painting techniques that are painted onto the miniatures, and so to kind of oversimplify things here a little bit,
Mm.
that is the standard to which you must paint, right? And these attitudes, especially because Golden Demon's kind of like the pinnacle of painting competition, at least here in the United States.
Oh yeah.
These attitudes, they trickle down, right? They trickle down, and they trickle down into even the casual realm of miniature painting. And people go like, and it has people going like, like, oh, like, you use true metallic metals here, not non-metallic metal.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, like, or you didn't use object source lighting, which is basically like, taking the light source of, say, a plasma gun on the miniature and trying to make it look like it's glowing, to simplify that explanation for your audience. Oh, sorry, oh,
Thank
you
you.
don't have OSL on this miniature? Psh, whack. When like these are ultimately they're just gimmicks.
Yeah.
And this is what I mean about like it sort of mirroring the tech world in terms of like the cycle of trends, the cycle of
Mm-hmm.
gimmicks. Snapchat was the first app to have like a stories feature on it. Now every social media app has a story feature on it because, or like short form
Yeah.
video. TikTok blew up short form video with a freaking 500-ton nuclear
Yeah.
bomb, and
Pretty
now
much. Yeah.
YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, LinkedIn all have to have a shorts feature because they did it and it blew up, right? So there's this matter, so the same attitude of like, oh, like, um, oh, I must do this because it has like has worked in the past, and it has, it's been like it's made winners out of people, etc. We see this in the mini painting world all the time, and
Yeah.
this I promise I'm gonna bring this all back home in a little bit, because I know I'm introducing a lot of different points
You
here.
got it.
Sorry to the professor who's listening to this, is probably like, oh, this student was probably this when this guy was a student, he was probably writing hella weird essays. But anyway,
No, no, we'll love it.
um, all this is to say that, where I and many other miniature painters in our space, like Bennett, like Bard, like Kaha, like Bonko, like Jamie, tend to stand is like, yeah, when it comes time for competition, we understand the lay of the land. We know the game that they want us to play, and we'll play along. But for our own miniature painting, we're looking to create things that bring us and other people joy, and that's kind of like where our artistic practice is rooted, right?
Mm-hmm.
I paint with funky color schemes. I don't care about doing like, the whole grim dark thing. I don't care about, I never paint in a canonical color scheme for an army. So like, for example, my Death Guard project that I just recently completed, they're typically like that, that putrid green color, right? Um,
Yeah.
but like mine are all like blue, and like they're like cyan and magenta and yellow, and
I
there's like, it's
love
very
them so
psychedelic.
much. I'm
Thank
gonna
you, though.
link
I
them
appreciate that.
in the show notes
Oh yeah,
for
sure.
everyone to
I'd
see.
be down for that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah. So it's like, our usual miniature painting comes from this place, not of like trying to make it look correct, just trying to put the idea generated from like our own artistic, inspiration, putting that onto the model, right? Now, and Kaha, um, in particular, what makes her win so remarkable is that she managed to find a way to do both at the same time, right? She got that bronze at Golden Demon, and when we look at her piece, we're like, oh yeah, like this is an unorthodox way of painting for like, a typical Golden Demon entry, because her style is so unique. And then but despite that, though, like she managed to like incorporate very successfully the sort of the criteria, because they don't post about these things. They don't put this in the rules like you must paint like this, right? You have to sort of decipher it for yourself, and she managed to decipher it in a way that was also like very unique and original. Personally, hers was, of all the winners, hers was my favorite piece. Like if I had the choice over who to give the Slayer sword to, which is the grand
Yes.
prize at Golden Demon, I would have given it to her, hands down, all the way. And the reason why I'm excited to learn from her is because like I'm looking forward to, not I don't want to correct my painting style. I want to elevate my painting style, so I can make
Exactly.
truly stunning work in a way that feels very true to me. Kind of beating back against the current of like, oh, your work must be correct. Excuse me, must be correct. And that's the reason why I'm excited to enter the Nova Opens Capital Palette competition, because since it's an open competition, right? They do have like standards by which they judge each model. Like because it's an open competition, they'll give a gold, silver, metal. Oh my god, gold, silver, and bronze medal for each category, and then they'll select like a best in category overall. But because of the nature of the competition, because of the open nature of it and the criteria that they use, right? We saw this at Capital Palette 2024, actually. There can be like 7 models, maybe, that medal, and there can be literally like 5 bronze, 2 gold winners, and no silvers, right? Because they will judge, like, they'll look at it and they'll judge, and if they don't think anything meets the silver standard, right, they're not going to choose, like, oh, what among the bronzes deserves to be bumped up or what among the golds deserves to be bumped down. No, no, no. If they determine like these are gold
Mm-hmm.
standards and these are bronze standard minis, there are just simply no silver standard minis, so no silver medals are awarded, right? Um, the standards at no, I don't have a full deciphering of them myself, right? But a lot of it has to do with like the cleanliness of the execution. I just thought of something, because I got this in the feedback from my judge last year, when I entered, right? One of the number one pieces of feedback that every miniature painter who ever tries to compete in anything will always hear is, push your highlights, right? Because there's this sense that this like very high contrast, very bright, very poppy style of painting is kind of really in vogue, right?
Yeah.
And so everything's got to look like that, and I'm just like, and what if I don't fucking wanna? And what if I don't wanna? What if that doesn't make having a more brightly contrasted mini does not automatically make it better necessarily, right? Again,
Yeah.
it's all a sense of personal taste, right? And that's the thing, right? It's like you go
Exactly.
back in the history of these competitions, and it's like one guy's sense of taste, or like a handful of dudes' sense of taste, emphasis on dudes, right? That then, like, oh, like, this is the standard, so now, like, this is now suddenly, it's been ordained the standard, so now everyone's got to fucking do it, right? And it's just like, I mean, not, I mean, no, like, I don't like, uh, I mean, what?
Exactly.
Like, again, it's a lot. It's more, I guess, like, if I had to describe it, like, it's like the sort of masculine view of like what makes a good mini is like about checking off a checklist of criteria, whereas like perhaps the more feminine view of it is like, oh, like, what does this make me feel when I look at it, right? Focusing on that. I know, even though I have never won a single prize in any competition. Um, Even though I'm not like super competitive, and I certainly don't do this. I don't. I'm since I have a full time job outside of this, or at least I work full time hours.
Yeah.
Um, and so I don't rely on painting for like a living like a lot of our friends do.
Mm-hmm.
But despite that, I trust that I am a good mini painter at the end of the day, because people like you, people like my friends, and people like the viewers who and the other community members who I've met along the way over this 2-year journey of being a content creator have told me, like, looking at my miniatures brings them joy, and that's ultimately what I care about at the end of the day. I don't think you have to have, the most finely painted miniature in order to evoke senses of joy and ooh and ah, and, like, and of inspiration. And for my fellow artists out there who are struggling to maybe pick up the brush and get to painting, a sense of inspiration too, right? And this is what I wish was like more so at the heart of the competitive miniature painting space. But that's just not the reality, and that's what we have to accept, right? Or
Yeah.
at least, that's what we have to accept when we go into these spaces, right? Now, um one really great thing that a lot of our, as you're all aware of, like, people like Froggy PhD, Jamie, even herself, lots of our content creator friends run their own painting competitions on their streams. And what I really appreciate about, like, I remember, like, when Froggy was doing like her Golden Frog Awards, as a part of her, oh goodness, which anniversary? One of her channel anniversaries on her Twitch channel, back a couple months ago. Obviously there were, like, like, raw technique was part of her judging criteria, yes. But ultimately too, what I really liked about, because she would like review them on stream, right? I loved the way she let the way the miniature made her feel kind of inform her decision making, right? Um, because, like, that's the thing. It's like when we get into these matters of aesthetics, um, it's such a it's like it really is just such a matter of personal taste, right? Like,
Yeah.
um how do I put this? Like it's weird. Like as someone with an artistic background, it's kind of jarring for me to come into like the competitive painting space and see people go like oh like I don't like your level. I think your level of contrast here is too low. Which I do believe there's like a floor for level of contrast, right? Like sometimes like you just have no contrast and the mini does look kind of flat, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then like what beyond that though, it's like or they're like, oh, like I don't like the like your highlights are like super bright. I'm like, okay, dude,
Yeah, I've been
really?
told I use
Like,
too much OSL actually. I have too many things glowing, so
too much OSL, Lil.
eh,
I
too
I'm gonna
much.
go on. I'm willing to go on record in saying this. There was a winner in the apprentice level category, the lowest level category at Capital Palette last year, where the project was literally 75% um 75%, at least 75% OSL. It was like a miniature standing above a lava pit, and because of the way like lighting would work in that miniature, like 75% of that miniature was just dark. Okay, it was literally just mostly OSL. So like I call bullshit. Whoever told you that, I call bullshit.
I
And this is what
know.
I'm talking about, right? This is what I'm talking about. I'm like, what the fuck do you mean? There's too much. What does that mean?
Tell
Right? Like me with my more artistic. I was gonna say autistic by
them.
mistake. We don't know that for sure. It's just been a long time suspicion. But anyway, me with like my more artistically inclined brain, I'm like, what the fuck do you mean too much OSL? Like, what the fuck do you mean? Like, how are you quantifying that in your head? Please tell me, because that is a mystery to me, right? I'm like,
Hmm.
huh? I just don't understand it. I really don't understand it, Lil. I really
It
don't.
just made my
Um,
Death Guard too whimsical, I guess.
Man, you know what? Speaking of whimsical, right? I don't. No, she's not teaching it at Nova, I don't think. If you ever get to, if you actually, I'll double check this as I'm saying this. But like, if you ever get the chance to take Zambies' Wind Dark class, I didn't get to take it unfortunately at Adepticon this year. But Zambies
Ooh.
uh, has this class called I'm forgetting the full title, but basically she teaches people how to paint in her personal painting style, which she refers to Whim Dark, which like takes its inspirations from like the typical grim dark aesthetics of most miniature painting we see, especially in the wargaming space, and elevates it to this level that's a bit more whimsical, a bit more colorful, a bit more frankly fun to look at, right? And yeah, like I feel like you would really like that class. And so if
Ooh.
you're ever at an event where she's teaching it, I highly recommend that you do avail yourself. Okay, yeah, she's not teaching at Nova. I just double checked. But yeah, maybe she will next year though.
Yeah,
Who knows? Who knows? But yeah, I highly recommend availing yourself of that class. Because I think you would really
for sure.
stand to gain a lot from it. And
Um,
see, this is why I really love what I love. If I could just say
yeah.
real quickly, this is
Yeah,
what I
yeah.
love so much about more women getting involved with the miniature painting, right? Because it's just broadening people's like toolkits with like styles they can use, right? And just broadening the possibility of like what can be done with your miniature, uh, in a way that's like very compelling, very inspiring to look at, and just more fun. Just helping people to break the mold, right? Whether it's Jamie with her four color challenge, or Zambies with her Wind Dark style, or Kaha with her absolutely mind blowing what the fuck type shit. You know what I'm saying?
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know if she has a name for her style yet. I'll find out when I take her class. I guess, but yeah, you get my point though.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
the women in the wargaming space are really out here breaking the mold with like what's possible, what's compelling, what's inspiring, and I'm happy to be here. I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah.
I'm happy to be here.
On
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
topic of you supporting women, um, I want to talk a little bit more about your thoughts of how to make the wargaming space more inclusive, and like what you've done in your own community to have such a diverse group of folks.
Yeah, absolutely. So, geez, a part
Woo.
of it was just like sheer luck that I lucked into this like sort of side of the community. I'll tell you the story of how
Mhm.
I met everyone else, right? So one day, so okay, I guess in true Gemini fashion, here I go giving a lot of backstory. So,
Give it to
overarching
me.
summary of my content creator journey. And on February 16th, 2023, I went live on YouTube for the first time. And I streamed on YouTube for my whole first year of streaming. And then in 2024, in January, on the 5th of January 2024, was when I streamed live on Twitch for the very first time. So like I spent the whole year on YouTube before migrating over to Twitch because there was simply no
Ah,
community over on YouTube. Like yes, there are the YouTubers like Goobertown Hobbies, Lila
yeah.
Mev, Midwinter Minis, etc. But none of them stream over
Yeah.
there. None of them even really stream at all, period, except for Miniac, for example, right?
Mhm.
Or Tabletop Minions, Uncle Adam, right?
Yeah.
Um, there was no, and of course, discoverability on YouTube is dog shit. So there was no sense of community over there. And then I came over to Twitch. I was watching Dr. Rhino stream one day, and we raided into Jamie, and that was the first time I ever like spoke to her. I had commented being like Dr. Rhino raid, rah, and she read my name on stream. She was like, Chimera Paints Minis, you sound like you're a creator. Are you a creator? Do you have like any work you want to share? And she let me drop my Instagram link in her chat. She gave me
Aw.
the permit command to do that, and that was the start of a very beautiful friendship. And from there, like it was a chain reaction of like following raids and finding people like Grumpy, Panda, Nerd Holla,
Mhm. That's
Bonko.
how I found you.
Uh,
Was it
that's how
Jamie
you
Raid?
found me.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly, exactly. So that's how I kind of came into this whole community. That's how I kind of lucked my way into it, I guess you could say. Um, and I think the key thing for me is the without Jamie's innate curiosity about what I bring to the table, I would not be where I am today. Dead ass. Like I'm willing to say that with the utmost confidence that without her being curious and open to learning about my experiences and what I bring to the table, just as me, Christian, Chimera, right? I simply would not be here, right? And I think the number one thing that people must do in order to build an inclusive space is you have to let people as much as because like we see that stereotype all the time like the nerds who want to get people involved in their hobby but they kind of take on this sort of like kind of really pressed kind of like really helicoptery um
Yeah.
mentor teacher role kind of like you know what I'm saying like and then they kind of subordinate you they make you feel subordinate to them like oh like you're still new to the hobby right like you got to learn the way we do things before like we see you as like a full-fledged I don't know hobbyist or whatever I'm
Yeah,
like
exactly.
what is this a fucking Jedi Order the fuck am I a youngling hell no um instead though so in contrast to that, what I appreciate about what Jamie did is that she never made me feel subordinate to her, right? Obviously she's been painting longer. Obviously she's been a content creator longer than me. But what from the minute that we first spoke, right? She was very curious about me, about what I bring to the table, and in a way that I had not encountered really at that point, not just as a content creator, but just as a miniature painter, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I think that we have to have that same spirit whenever we want to welcome new people into a space because people aren't dumb. People aren't dumb. People have experiences. They bring stuff to the table, right? Even if they have less experience than you in terms of like number of years, months, etc. They're still bringing something new, right? Because we're all adults here, for the most part, right? So I think you have to be curious about that. You have to let people, as much as you want to contribute to someone else, you have to let that person contribute too, right? This is something that goes down to like the fundamental science of like relationships, right? You know,
Mhm.
um, in any type of relationship, you gotta let the other person show up for you as much as you want to show up for them. I love when I have a moment where I need like a friend of mine to show up for me and they go like I'm really glad like I can show up for you in this moment just and like I'm sharing the joy that I get from showing up for people uh when I let someone show up for me right and and I think we have to carry that attitude forward into this space in order to let it grow in order to let it thrive in order to let it evolve really um so like if I ever have like a friend who who's not like a cishet white man, right? Who wants to get involved in this hobby, I'll be like, okay, bet. I'll show you. Like, you need help with the basics. I got you. Then from there, like, I'll let you go, fam. Like,
Yeah.
you're not my subordinate in this. You're my comrade in paint, right? Um, oh no, Chimera's a communist. Because he used the word comrade on a podcast.
Get
Oh my
him.
god. Yeah, got my ass. But yeah, I hope all that makes sense,
Oh
right? I think
yeah.
like
Like
yeah,
you're someone I feel very comfortable like asking questions to, whether it's about painting or more often technology. Um but yeah, and I think you really exemplify that, like what Jamie showed us as our kind of painting fairy godmother. Like you doing like your weekly roundups on stream, I think is so super awesome when you show off everyone's work in progress, whips, and final project. Like I had never seen that, and I thought that was so cool.
oh, thanks. Well, yeah, I try to. The reason why I do the weekly roundup on my stream is because I want everyone to know that they deserve to be taken seriously, regardless of like where they are in their artistic development, right? Because the doing of the work is itself so valuable, right? And this is again something from my this is something from like my artistic training as an actor. I think that like this is like the biggest thing I carry forward from that is the my understanding of the value of doing the work, right? And what that entails, what it takes to get from conception, no, not conception, conceptualization to final product, right?
Yeah.
And the technical and the emotional journey of that. I think, excuse me, I think that, I think when that rubs up against like, traditional ideas of masculinity, right? Um, I think a lot of people who maybe like consider themselves to be like more masculine, right, especially like with like the traditional common denominator of the space, like cishet white men. I think what might happen oftentimes is that they seek comfort in the structure because it challenges them in a way that's very easy to digest, which is like, oh, all I have to do is figure out how to match this standard, right?
Mm-hmm.
Easy clap, right? That's comfortable, it's very safe. But then you start to venture outside of that, and I think like especially like this is why painters in our space can get um, met with like hostility, certainly skepticism, and sometimes hostility is that like we dare by our very existence and the very existence of our work, we're kind of passively dare, and in some cases very actively daring people to step outside of that box, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that can be very scary to step outside of that box, but the truth is more people should. These are the things about like this is why like going back to art school, right? Like in art school, it's the classic, you gotta break them down to build it up type shit, really take you back to like square one and walk you very slowly over the course of those 4 years through like what it means to create work. And it's a very emotional journey. And I can say this because I'm an army brat. I feel like I went to goddamn boot camp for at least especially the first year of art school. Oh my god. I had a friend at the time who was dating who was dating a Marine, not like long term or anything like that. They just got on a few dates while while he was in town for Fleet Week one year. And because the and this is so funny because the Intrepid was in town. The USS Intrepid was in town, and the what was I gonna say? And it was interesting because what he had said was like, oh yeah, like they were swapping stories about like art school and basic training. And the dude, the Marine, was like, wow, yeah, like art school sounds like basic with especially with the way like they kind of reset you to zero, and kind of force you to take account of who you are as a person and how you're going to take inventory of yourself and and develop that inventory, that emotional inventory, that in the case and actually no, in both cases the physical inventory too, right?
Oh yeah.
um and so I think that with and this is something that I've never really had the chance to really sit down and like reflect on
Yeah.
in long form like this. So I appreciate you for providing the space to do that. But yeah, it's like the I think that's a big part of the reason why I am the miniature painter that I am today, and not like what I could have perhaps been, I guess. And I'm very grateful that like my artistic training has sort of led me to this place of wanting to venture outside of my comfort zone and of wanting to to strive for something more, something that feels truer to myself and nobody else. And I really hope that more men, more young boys especially, who are struggling nowadays. I'm a college counselor in my day job, so I see this all the time. I see this all the time. You know, I work to help these kids to get into to college and university, and my boys, they struggle a lot with the self-reflection piece.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, for like the Common App personal statement and for like the supplemental essays that they have to write for these schools, at least at first, before I start working with them, it's a little terrifying. So I'm like, what do you mean your only motivations are to make the most, like for studying a certain major, or to only make the most money possible? It's not
Yeah.
good enough. You're gonna have to dig a little deeper. You dig deeper.
Exactly.
Oops. Oh, not the Disney music on the podcast. Oh fuck. Oh fuck. I got it
Oh,
shut down. I'm so
we're
sorry, Lil. Fuck.
demonetized.
We're demonetized. Holy shit. But yeah, so
Yeah.
I see connections to like all of this, right? And like the especially the idea of like masculinity that young boys are getting from social media. You know, I'm like, no, 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 no. Like some of them are like, yeah, like I don't see the point of going to college. Like, listen, dude, you don't just go to college to get the degree and get like the good paying job and get the education, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's gonna with college, you know, you learn how to interact with different types of people. You're going to develop some emotional skills, or else it will destroy you.
Yeah.
It will destroy you, right?
Exactly.
And that's a that like you gotta grow up. And that's why look, that's why people oftentimes choose college or the fucking military to
Mm-hmm.
go to after high school, because like either way they're gonna force you to grow the fuck up, right? Um, and
Yeah.
so what's my point here? I wish like you know I often I especially as an educator, right? Seeing, you know, the arts be devalued in high school and even in some cases like or just in K through 12 education in general and in some
Mm-hmm.
cases in college, right, in university, I'm just like, no, we really need this because these kids, they got to get in touch with their humanity or else it'll have disastrous consequences. They're going to feel more isolated. They're going to feel more isolated
Yeah.
because they don't know how to. If they can't figure out how to tap into the humanity of themselves, they can't connect to the humanity in other people.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what is so important about having college or some kind of structure, even in wargaming, having a hobby is being able to connect with other people and show your interests. Like, I feel
Yes,
like I talk to too many people that are like, I don't have hobbies, I just scroll. And I'm like,
yes,
I feel sad for you.
yes. I do
Yeah,
too. I'm like, please let me help you find something,
please.
anything to grab onto, even if it's just collecting rocks. That's still better. That's still so much
Yeah.
better than the alternative. You know what I'm saying?
So,
We all need this art. We all need this art
exactly.
for real.
So, we're coming up on time here.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
is there anything else you want to talk about or just plug yourself?
I'll say one last statement and then I'll
Yeah.
give my plug. Lil, this is a phenomenal project. I'm so happy that you're
Mm,
doing this. I think like
thank
you
you.
know, this is I think the especially knowing like who you've got lined up for this project. I think this series is going to end up being very important. I'm very happy that you're opening up the floor to these sorts of conversations. There are other podcasts who are kind of talking about the same thing, right? But I think what
Hmm.
you're doing here is you're providing a more unified perspective on just like what it means to be, you know, an artist and to be involved in this hobby, and like what the sort of value of this is all for us and how it gets closer to help us not only get in touch with like our humanity but the humanity, you know, the humanity of others, and you know looking at it through the lens of gender especially too. I think is just it's brilliant. I love this idea. So thank you so much for letting me be on here. I really appreciate you letting me take over the mic for a little bit
Oh, yeah.
um, to plug myself. So, once again, gamers, my name is Christian. I go by Chimera Paints Minis, all one word, on twitch.tv/. Chimera Paints Minis. It's my primary channel. I go live on Monday and Wednesday nights at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We go in, we chill, we paint minis. We occasionally play some video games, whether that's, playing some Balatro, which is my current favorite video game of all time,
Oh
or
yeah.
we're yelling at the screen at our friends while we play Overcooked 2 and scrambling around the kitchen, right? We have a good time. You can find me at ChimeraPaintsMinis on Instagram and TikTok as well, and Blue Sky. We got the handle across all platforms. Let's go SEO,
Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, I hope to see you all around in stream sometime. If you come from the podcast here today, please let me know. I'd love to say hi and to be able to know, like, how many minds are being blown, how many lives are being changed by Lil's awesome work.
Aw, thank you. You are making this project so easy, and I'm loving it so much because of everything I'm getting to learn about people that I
Right.
didn't know, how we all got now.
Okay, good.
We're gonna
Sorry,
stop.
that's such a mean joke to play.
We're gonna stop the recording and play the
Bitz
outro
Box.
song.
Thank you for having me in the Bitz Box. It's cozy in here. Also, you were recording the whole